So Sandy Weill, the former head of Citibank, wasn't it? As I recall, former head of Citibank, back in 1999, 2000, when Gramm-Leach-Bliley came along and said, yeah, let's blow up Glass-Steagall. I mean, they cut some holes in it back in the 80s during the Reagan administration that had to do with the way that certain commodities or certain types of speculative investments could be made. But they really blew it apart in 99, 2000 with Gramm-Leach-Bliley, Phil Gramm's masterpiece, as his wife was working for, on the board of Enron. Sandy Weill, the banker who arguably was one of the most responsible for advocating, for telling the senators and the members of Congress, yeah, vote for this thing, do away with Glass-Steagall. It's been on the books since 1935. We haven't had a bank failure. See, we don't need it. And so it went away, and now the banks blew up. Sandy Weill was on CNBC recently, and Becky Quick was totally freaked out by his answer to the question. Let's actually start out with just what he had to say. Clip one here. Here's Sandy Weill. He's now retired, but up until 2006, he was the executive CEO of Citibank. Here he is.
So I think what we should probably do is go and split up investment banking from banking. Have banks be deposit takers. Have banks make commercial loans and real estate loans. Have banks do something that's not going to risk the taxpayer dollars, that's not going to be too big to fail.
So what he's talking about here is there's two kinds of banks. There's banks, what he's calling banks, and what typically have been called commercial banks, and what are called investment banks. And used to be, when Glass-Steagall was in place, that commercial banks, the ones that did mortgages and took your checking accounts and your savings accounts and loaned money to local small businesses, that those banks were prevented from participating in the stock market. They couldn't gamble. And so here's Sandy Weill saying, let's put an end to this. Let's separate these two kinds of banks so that the gambling banks can go off and gamble and take their risks, but the banks, the ones on which the infrastructure, the economic infrastructure of this country is founded or stands, are not going to go down in flames again. They're not going to have to be bailed out. He just came right out and said it. And clip number 2 here, Becky Quick just freaks.
Right.
That's a pretty radical idea, though. The idea of breaking up the investment banks and the banks. Are you suggesting going back and really breaking these companies up?
That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
Really? Really? Oh, my. And here in clip number 3, he explains a little farther.
I'm suggesting that they be broken up so that the taxpayer will never be at risk. The depositors won't be at risk. The leverage of the banks will be something reasonable.
The leverage of the bank. Just let's go back to a safe banking system, please. This is the Godfather of the Banksters saying this. I mean, there's got to be a certain amount of credibility to this. On the other hand, Mitt Romney, clip number 9 here, talking about Dodd-Frank, which regulates slightly. I mean, doesn't return Glass-Steagall, just slightly. He says, we're going to look over your shoulder a little bit, make sure you don't blow up the economy. Here's Mitt Romney's position.
But this bill was too overreaching and too massive and has contributed to a slowdown in lending.
Right. And therefore, clip number 10, Mitt Romney says this is what he wants to do.
I would like to repeal Dodd-Frank.
Right. Whew. Meanwhile, Mitt Romney's in London right now, hanging out with banksters, including banksters from Barclays. Just the whole thing, you add it all up, and it's like, this is just so strange. This is so strange. The system got gamed. I mean, the system got gamed big time over the last 30 years. Let's just call it what it is. During the Reagan administration, our tax system got gamed so that middle-class people ended up paying most of the taxes in America, the largest chunk of the cost of running government. and big corporations, which used to pay, well, not half, but not even more or less a third, but now they're paying less than 10%. And rich people got this huge tax cut. I mean, a huge tax cut from 74% down to 28%. I'm talking about seriously rich people like Mitt Romney, people who make $10, $20, $30 million a year doing nothing, which is what Mitt Romney's doing right now. I mean, he's running for president, but he's not being paid for that. Seriously rich people got this huge tax cut. So first of all, in the 80s, the tax system got gamed. And also, I mean, this really started with Richard Nixon's administration, but over the few decades, our trade system got gamed. So that the big transnational corporations, now with NAFTA and GATT and CAFTA and SHAFTA and all these various trade deals, the big corporations are like, hey, we don't need no stinking American workers. We can move our jobs offshore. We can move our manufacturing offshore, and we can keep our money offshore, some $5 trillion of it, and not pay any taxes on it. How sweet is that? And we want to build a new factory offshore, just take it out of that pot. And effectively pay no taxes in the United States. This is what General Electric does, effectively pay no taxes. ExxonMobil effectively pays no taxes. In fact, they get a tax refund. You and I pay them. Does ExxonMobil pay for the cost of the United States Navy that protects the shipping lanes, that brings the oil that they're drilling offshore and in foreign countries in the Middle East and brings it back to the United States? No, they don't pay for that. They're not suckers. You and I pay for it. We're the suckers. Right? You can and this all goes back to the Reagan administration, the Bush administration, the origin of this whole thing. Arguably back to the Nixon administration. I mean, the Republicans have been working on this for a long, long time. So the system got gamed. We got screwed. Our trade laws got changed. Then in 2002, George W. Bush came along and said, hey, let's put Diebold, whose CEO, Wally Odell, in 2004 wrote a letter saying that he was going to deliver Ohio for George W. Bush against John Kerry. Let's put Diebold in charge of our voting. And so in 2002, George W. Bush pushed through the Help America Vote Act to get these voting machines all over the country, passing out $5.5–6 billion to the various states and counties. So you too can buy voting machines from these private corporations because we're privatizing the vote, didn't you know? And that wasn't enough. So then, it's, well, okay, we privatize the vote. We can get this little red shift in a few states, red shift in Florida, red shift in Ohio, red shift in Pennsylvania. But it wasn't really enough. So now it's, well, let's throw 400,000 people off the voting rolls in just the city of Philadelphia. What the heck? They don't need to vote. 43% of the people in the city don't have one of the 5 kinds of ID that you have to legally have to vote in Pennsylvania. The governor, by the way, Tom Corbett, could not identify what those IDs were yesterday when he was asked. He's like, I don't remember what they are. It's driver's license and passport and something else. Right. So you are guilty of voter fraud until you prove yourself innocent by showing your ID. What happened to that? Innocent until proven guilty? No, that doesn't work for Republicans. I mean, our voting system's been gamed, our tax system's been gamed, our trade system's been gamed, our business system's been gamed. Reagan stopped enforcing the Sherman Act. Now it's nothing but big businesses. Small companies are out of business.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
At what point do Americans say, enough? Enough. We're tired of being gamed. We want this country to work again.